Ken with Kiss My Arsenal TV, and this is the first episode of Summer School. As you can tell, we have a pretty loaded program today. We're going to talk about the FA Cup final. We're going to do a season recap. We're going to do an overview of Wenger's contract extension. We're going to do a little talking about Mbappe, and we're going to talk about the players out that could be leaving in the next week or two. So strap up, buckle up. I'm recording live from one of my favorite brew pubs here in the city where I live. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the FA Cup, but there are a couple points that I wanted to discuss. First is the atmosphere at the FA Cup, especially at Wembley compared to the atmosphere at the Emirates. I feel like a lot of times at Wembley, our fans are kind of forced to get behind the team, where at the Emirates, especially in my experiences there, it seems like if the team has a slow start or they go through a rough patch, the fans can get a little antsy. They might turn against the team a little bit. You might hear a few boos. But at Wembley, you don't really hear that. And I think that really reflects the performances of the team and their ability to push through tough situations. The second point is just a shout out to Mertesacker. He is the leader of our squad. He might not be the on-field captain, but he's technically the captain of the first team. And his leadership was invaluable during the FA Cup. If you watch the interviews between him and Holding before the FA Cup, you can tell that he's a really steadying influence on a lot of our young defenders. I look forward for Chambers getting back off loan to work with Mertesacker if we intend to keep him. But I definitely think he's a really great influence on Holden. And it really warmed my heart to hear that earlier in the week that he planned on taking on a coaching role if he plans on retiring. The third point is that this is our third trophy in 4 years. I know people like to talk about how the FA Cup isn't a major trophy, and we'll get to that in a second. But a trophy's a trophy to me, and 3 out of 4 FA Cups should be commended, regardless. And the last thing is there's a lot of discussion on if the FA Cup is a major honor or not. I still tend to believe it is. I believe any competitive trophy won is a major honor. I mean, in the case of the Premier League, itself, they only give out 3 trophies a year. And, I'm pretty sure every team in the first division, every team in every division in the British Premier League, British Premier League leagues will want to win a trophy every year. So winning 1 out of 3 possible trophies on hand, especially in the first division, is a very good haul, especially over the course of 4 years when you've managed to win 3 of them. Hi. So I'm going to spend even less time reviewing the season than I did talking about the FA Cup final, probably because most people have said our season's been over since March. So there's been plenty of time for people to go through and give all their hot takes. I really don't have any takes on this one. My biggest pro from the season is that this is the first year I feel like we've really had impact transfers come through during the summer. I mean, our biggest transfers this summer were Xhaka, Mustafi, and Lucas. And say what you want about the playing time that Lucas got, how good Mustafi played throughout the year, or how well Xhaka, bedded into the Premier League. But these were 3 transfers that got sizable bits of action, and they were all high-level transfers that, walked right into the first team. So I think that that's a real reflection on poaching the head scout from Leicester City last January. And I think that only bodes good things. I think that was a pro from our season. The obvious con is that we took a step back. We finished second 2 seasons ago. Finishing 5th this year is obviously a step back. Nobody wanted to miss out on the Champions League. And I feel like the main takeaways from this season in terms of pros and cons is that I expect us to have another strong transfer window. Regardless of the number of players we bring in, I expect the quality to be better. And I think everyone at the club is a little disappointed at how the season ended before the FA Cup. So I think Wenger's contract situation essentially boils down into on-field and off-field issues. The on-field issues were obvious for everybody to see. The team obviously underperformed this season. We didn't finish where we wanted to. This is the first year in a decade or so of us actually missing the Champions League. And I feel like while this contract was not a reward for that, it was definitely not a punishment for that either. I feel like more than anything else, this contract was a show of faith in Wenger's off-field personnel decisions. He's shown a slight willingness to adapt in formation, a slight willingness to adapt to bring in personnel, and more than anything else, he's shown an ability to continue to make the club profitable under all circumstances. So I believe this 2-year extension, especially given the on-field product, was more a show of confidence in his ability to continue to deliver off-field success with a hope that on-field success would be soon to follow. So Mbappe. My feeling on Mbappe is much the same as I felt on the Pogba transfer last year. I believe it was Gareth Bale 2 seasons ago. Any world's most expensive transfer or high dollar transfer where you're paying a lot of money and signing a player to a long-term contract, I believe that essentially what you're paying for is the risk per season. So, for example, the latest bid for Mbappe from Real Madrid, I believe earlier today, was 135 mil. So if they sign him to a 6-year contract, that roughly breaks out to 25 or 30 mil a year. And I believe in that risk. I believe over the course of the next 5 seasons, especially with the way inflation works in football in terms of player fees or player prices going up in terms of how much they're worth, yes, over the course of the next 5 to 6 years, it is totally worth it to invest 25 to 30 million dollars on what would potentially be the Mbappe punt, as opposed to bringing in a new player every year for 25 or 30 mil and expecting them to bed. For some perspective, 2 years ago, I believe Benteke went for 30 or 35 mil to Liverpool. Last year, you can think of Markovic, maybe a few more players. I think Mane was the one splash hit that Liverpool bought, and all their players for 30, 35 mil. But the point being that every year, just about, every club spends about 100 million on transfers, and that usually breaks down to about 25 to 35 mil a player, and sacrificing that on a risk that Mbappe is going to be good over the next 4 to 6 years, I believe it's totally worth it. Go get him if you can, Arsenal. I believe the money pays back, especially when Wenger has a policy of only bringing in a couple of players a year to begin with. So while all the sexy talk this summer is going to be around the transfers of Alexis Sanchez and Mesut Ozil possibly leaving the club, the only 2 things that have really, I guess, had any smoke or fire to them over the past couple of days have been the Lucas Perez exit rumors and the Kieran Gibbs exit rumors. The Lucas Perez exit rumors are still just rumors, but Gibbs has actually had some firm interest from Newcastle. I believe they've lodged a 15 million bid. I'm not sure if it was rebuffed or not, but I believe our valuation is closer to 20. And while I would hate to see Kieran Gibbs go, I fully expect for him to be gone in the next week or 2. Thanks for checking out this episode of Summer School. Please send any questions, comments, or suggestions to the Twitter handle below, and I hope to see you guys next time.